All right, we got all the fuel injection pipes off and everything else, all the towers came off. I did a little bit of cleaning on the top of the speaker unit. And now what I'm going to try to do is line up that little blotch right over here with the mark. I think that blotch is obscuring the mark on the pulley to line up with the mark on the speaker pump. So I'm going to use a fan belt to turn the engine for the first time in 30 years. And let's see how it goes. I think I got to turn it counterclockwise. It moved just a hair. If I had a 32... If I had a 32, I wish I had a socket that was big enough to get around the, maybe there's something else we can get around that crank. Hold on. Okay, well, I put a pipe wrench, this strap wrench on the crank, and I was able to turn the engine about an inch or two, and sure enough, the pointer, I don't know if you can see this. You got too much glare in my. The pointer is pointing right to the eye mark. It's off by about a teeny bit, but it's basically on it. So what the factory did, I always keep a cover on the front of the car. You know why? Because if you drop a wrench, you know, the thing when you're working on a car, you're walking around it constantly from left to right, center back. So I put a cover on the front of the car because I'm always afraid that I'm going to drop a wrench. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. So what the factory did was they put this big blotch over there, and that's essentially covering up the notch on the pulley. So, you know, this is not a precise science with lining up the pulley with the injection unit. So they figured that that was close enough. It's a real, that might have been a white mark at some point, but of course I'm going to leave it because it's factory. All right, I'm going to try to take the speaker belt off now. All right, let's go after some of these head bolts. I get a breaker bar, and I'm going to go after this one first. Piece of cake. This is going to work. I got this one off, no problem. I got that one off. I'm going to go in the sequence, just loosening of it. Why? Just for the heck of it. So let me work on this a while and I'll get back to you. I don't think we're going to try to get the head off today, but this is turning out to be not that bad. I soaked these bolts like the day after I got the car, which is about 2 weeks ago. And not video days, calendar days. So let me get these bolts off and we'll go from there. All right, Ready to start another day in Alpha Land here. I'm going after the cylinder head, and what I started to do is I loosened up all the exhaust nuts that I could get my hands on, and I also see this nut over here. This nut came from the bottom of that. See that little hole there? This nut and bolt came out of down there. And you know, it took me 3 hours to get that thing out. There's something about the curvature that you know, actually I was kind of stupid. I probably should I should have looked at it from this angle, but I don't know, I couldn't get a wrench on it, and it took me like hours. I have all these like different sizes and everything else and curvatures of wrenches and blah blah blah. Took me 3 hours to get that thing out of there. Well, anyway, what the strategy is going to be, I'm going to take off number 1 and 4 first, and that'll give me, I think, better access to 2 and 3. Now there is a train of thought that says to leave the exhaust manifold on when you're taking the head off, because you could use it as a lever, you know, to actually pull up on the head a little bit. But I don't know about that. I might try that later. I don't know. But anyway, so let's get to it and get under the car again. And by the way, another thing about lifting your car up. See what I'm doing down, you know, I'm using a hydraulic lift, and I put it out underneath the cross member between the two front road wheels. I lift the car up, and then I put it on stands. Well, when I did this a few days ago, I got the car up, and what started to happen was, because this thing's actually a little bit on rollers, it could move imperceptibly and you won't notice. Well, anyway, this thing on the rear slid off all the way like toward the back of this. As a matter of fact, look, the car is up on all four wheels, and this thing is actually loose because the car is not perfectly balanced, I guess. And anyway, the moral of the story is that when you put the car up on all, you know, and you're adjusting to put it up on the front stands, check the back stands, because it might have moved. That would not have been a pleasant outcome. As a matter of fact, it might have ended this video series. Well, anyway, so that's what we're doing today. I got to get under the car. It's going to be really boring and tedious work, because if it takes another 3 hours to get these things out of here, I'm not going to be a happy camper. Anyway, the car's up at a pretty good angle over here. I'm going to address that. Well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get under there. I'm going to try to get all the bolts out, get the manifolds off, whatever. And then I'm going to put the car back on its feet, because I got to take a picture of it for the DMV. The DMV would not accept a picture with the car up on jack stands for a historic plate. Is that the most ridiculous thing you ever heard? All right, well, I mean, anyway, I'm really annoyed about that. But let me get back to work on this thing. Okay. After much trial and tribulation, I was able to take number 1 and 4 off, and I'm gonna leave number 2 and 3 on, I think, pending some further investigation. What I did is I took off 2 bolts that are a support bracket way down yonder. You can see the support bracket is a little bit, it's right there. There are two 13mm double ganged nuts that secure that, which I'm going to show you in a second. But I disconnected that, and that gives you a lot more leeway on the whole exhaust system to move. So once I took the nuts off of the exhaust manifold, and I'm moving around here to get back off my knees. So once I took all the nuts off the exhaust manifold, the whole thing kind of just fell down and gave me a lot of leeway. The whole thing, is clear. So that's something, I guess, just to keep a little bit in mind. I'm not looking these procedures up on Alpha BB or anything else, which is, by the way, the greatest alpha resource in the face of the earth, bar none. Gee, I wonder what that little discoloration is in there. I probably should be following a procedure, but this seems to me to be pretty straightforward. Anyway, we got her done, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the crank over to the P mark. Let's see if you can see the I mark. I'm going to rotate the crank over to the P mark so we can prepare for busting the head off a little bit. The intake manifold is still connected to the car. I am not sure if I'm going to take that off at this point or not. I think what I'm going to do is try to disconnect the bell crank. This is already disconnected, the inlet to the intake manifold, to the heater hose. Everything else is disconnected. I might just lift it off with the car as long as I can disconnect this, the bell crank, which I should be able to do very easily. So let's get to that, and then we should be able to try to pop this puppy off of here. Alrighty. Hey, just to document what I took off the car. These are all the nuts for the two exhaust manifold halves. These are I broke this screw here, this nut, I should say this bolt. The nut came right off the bolt, and luckily this was, it's not there's not a double thread. The nut is threaded. I should say the bolt and the nut are threaded, but this is not. So this came right out. This is cleaned up. This is original from the car. You can see how just nasty these things are. This is the exhaust bracket double nut system. This is the orientation. This is the front of the car. This is the rear, and the bracket is in between this washer and the bolt head, just for putting it all back together. All right, well, we're going to take the first step to getting that chain off and eventually getting the head off. So I rotated the engine so that the cams are pointing out on both sides. The mark is lined up on P. Now what I'm going to do is loosen the chain tensioner and try to pull the chain. This is a little bit tighter than you think. Wow. Oh. As Archimedes said, if you want to move the earth, use a bigger lever. There we go. And so I'm going to loosen this about a quarter turn. That just cracked it. That's about a quarter turn. And my I have to loosen a little more. It doesn't seem to want to come towards me. Oh, there we go. That puts slack in there now. All right. So we got that done. All right, so we'll continue. Okay, so let's just recap what we did here. So I got the master link is right over here. I put two pieces of wire over here, secured it to two convenient holes that I unwittingly created when I took off the horns. This is the left horn bracket, right horn bracket. There's a hole in there that the stud goes through. It makes a very convenient hole to hold the chain when we take the chain off. The master link is oriented this way where it withdraws to this side. The link itself was attached with the end pointing this way. So you just withdraw this and the orientation is like that. Of course, there's the other side of the link itself, and of course don't drop this down there. So here's the other side of the link. So you just put these aside for a later day. So let's I guess take this stuff off and prevent that from going down there somehow. Just get some tension on there. And we'll do the same over here. Hope that nothing will fall down there, or at least won't fall too far down. So now the something fell down there. Oh, okay. 4 hours later. So what I did was I dropped the middle link down into yonder. So I'm laughing about it now, but I had a freaking heart attack. But so I dropped the middle link. So then I go in there with a homemade pickup tool that has a strong magnet, which I'll show you. Piece of junk. Here's the magnet, and it was held on with this coat wire that I had very strong tape around, and it lasted me for years until today. So I go in there, I go in there with my homemade magnet to try to get this thing out, and of course this comes off, and this falls in the engine. Okay, so now I'm feeling like a complete idiot. So I eat lunch. Then I said, well, let's take the oil pan out. So I took the oil pan out, and this is yonder oil pan. There was nothing in it except for this. What is it? I mean, this looks like a flat a wave washer. it was in the oil pan. And it looks like it has some wear on it also. And I'm thinking, where the heck did this come from? So I got 3 for the price of 2. I found the link. And here's where the endorsement part of this story comes into play. I've got a endoscope that I bought on Amazon. Okay, it's called a Teslong. I don't think you can see the logo and stuff. But if I turn it on, you can see you have Teslong, and it starts up, and you get yourself, you can see in the camera over here. There, let's get see. So I use this thing, and it comes with all these little attachments. I bought this, by the way, on Amazon for like $80, so it's a really good one. It's got excellent resolution and stuff. And it comes with all these little attachments, so to speak. There's a hook, and this thing here is a magnet. And I got to tell you, this magnet is not even about a 1/4 inch wide, and it's thin. It's maybe 1/8 of an inch thick, possibly. Anyway, so you take this, and this is the strongest freaking magnet you ever saw in your life. This thing is unbelievable. Well, anyway, so what I do is I go in there, I put the camera attachment on to look around. Now, this is after 3 hours of hunting and pecking around. I went in from the top. I put the camera attachment on and looked around, and I saw something that looked very suspicious. I could see about this much of it, and I said, that looks like our culprit. So I withdrew this, kind of remembered where it was. I put this attachment on. See, what it does is it screws right on here, right? So you can replace this bezel with this bezel that has an attachment that goes on there. $86 from Amazon, and today it was worth every penny. I mean, it took me a couple of hours to fish it out, but I got her. And so now, I took the oil pan guard off, of course. And the interesting thing about this oil, this oil was sitting for so long that all the dirt in the oil came down into the pan. This is 30 years ago. This dirt settled out. So the oil looks really, really clean. That's because all of the dirt came down and settled into the oil pan over 30 years of just sitting and doing nothing. At least that's my theory about the whole darn thing. So now we can proceed with taking the camshafts out, etc., and actually making progress. But I'm feeling really good about the fact that I was able to fish that thing out there. And I will not forget that there's a middle link when you're taking that thing out. I didn't look for it, and I paid the price. There's a little lesson to be learned. All right, onwards and upwards. All right, well, we're starting up again today. What I did is I put number 1 and 4 back on there to get some leverage on the head. But I'll tell you one thing, even though everything looks pristine in there around the studs, this thing doesn't want to go anywhere. I don't want to whack on it too hard with a hammer or anything. I might borrow my friend's removal tool. I just have to drive over to his house and get it, which is about 45 minutes. So in the meantime, I'm doing something really boring. I'm trying to extract whatever liquid is in the fuel tank. The fuel tank's going to be another big project. It's going to have to be removed. And I've done some research on some of the techniques. I think I'm going to do electrolysis on it, but let me get some liquid out and see what comes out. I am getting some, but not a lot. Well, this is what I got out of the gas tank. It's a nasty, I got a lot more than this. I got probably 2 quarts, maybe. But this is what it looks like after 30 years. And even though it smells pretty bad, I have smelled worse. But anyway, this will have to be disposed of properly somehow. I'll have to figure that out. All right, well, we're taking a break from the cylinder head removal. This is turning out to be a real pain in the neck. I just can't get enough leverage on it. I think I'm going to see my friend and borrow that. It's an Alpha tool, and I'll show you how that's used. It's pretty straightforward. It just mounts on the 4 studs, and you leverage off a double-threaded fitting that goes into the spark plug hole, and then there's a fitting that goes through here. You apply leverage. It pushes that down, this up. Anyway, we're going after the barometric compensator here. I want to go in there and see what kind of, what the fuel is like. I loosened the filter on the bottom over there. I don't know if you can see that well. You should be able to. I loosened the filter and I drained the oil out of the filter there. So there might not be anything left, because it probably drains all down. But I'm going to go in there and just take a look at what this compensator looks like. Note the orientation of the spring. This has to come out, and I think the whole thing just pops off. I took these screws off already with a, again, I used my trusty old gunsmithing bits. This is Brownell's Magnatip. It fit in there really nicely, so you won't round them off too badly, or at all. All right, so let's see what's under here. All right, well, we got the barometric compensator out, and not too much drama here. There's a little bit of oil down the bottom over there. I'm going to use my sucking tool to suck that stuff out of there, get that clean. I'm not sure about this gasket over here. I might have to remake. This is, well, the gasket's coming off pretty easily. Actually, the gasket looks, it's not under any oil pressure or anything. But the compensator looks clean, which you'd expect. Oops, see, that's why you have towels under here. I'm going to become a little bit more religious about that. But there's a screw that goes in there, and there's also a washer that fits on the stud of the nut. Oh, it's a bolt. Well, it goes like that. It sandwiches in between there. It's not that complicated. All right, so let me go in there and take a look at what we're going to get out of that oil reservoir in there. Like I said, I drained most of the oil. I'm going to be taking that off next, the oil filter, and see what's going on there. I have enough room, I think, to do it from above rather than below. I loosened the nuts on the studs earlier, so let's go after that and see what we get. So I decided to take a little detour and look at the main fuel filter. This is the orientation of it as it's in the car. The E must be for entrata and U for uscita, so that's enter and exit. So the fuel is passing this way, and this is the return line. These lines were pretty much toast. And you got a little sticker there from FISPA. I don't know, I can't really read it that well yet, but so what you do is you take a 17, well of course these are 13 millimeter bolts, studs I should say, with nuts and washers on it. Those are 13 millimeters, there's two of those, and this is a 17 mil that holds the main filter on. So I'm going to take the main filter off and see what we got in there. It's another archaeological experiment. Alright, so this thing was difficult to get off, so I put it actually in a vise. I clamped the base in a vise and then I hit on the housing, and it broke apart with a little bit of effort, not much. So this is what you got. FISPA. Yeah, not very exciting here. Let me play with this thing. I want to take a look at this filter. It's going to be interesting. All right. Well, you just lever this thing a little bit and get it out. Interesting filter. This is you can see where the fuel line was for 30 years. Let's take a look in there. That's not horrific. Got some crystallized stuff in there. It looks pretty salvageable. There's a little bit of stale gas in there. There was a pretty good amount that came out. You could see where the fuel line was. Man, this does some number on that. Well, anyway, I'm going to have to Dremel this thing up or something, and you could see all that corrosion that was just... It's amazing how much gasoline will do for corrosion. I mean, how well it corrodes things. Well, this thing's going to get tossed, of course. Torino, Italy. Alto, upward. 1584. Interesting, very interesting. Alright, well that's that. And again, the bottom of this, not that exciting. The gasket looks okay. I guess a kit has a replacement gasket, I'm sure. This is insulating material, I guess, to keep the gas cool from the heat from the engine compartment. Alright, well let's get this thing cleaned up and then archive it and put it away. I'll probably get back to this in a few months. But anyway, looks pretty good though. Alright, I just want to show you a little experiment. Following up on some research I did on the internet a while back. Somebody said that acetone is really good for taking off this corrosion. This, varnished gasoline. So, of course, I'm just rubbing it on and trying to see, but this does dissolve this varnished corrosion really effectively. Of course, it's taking off down here. This finish is gone anyway. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see how much... Oh man, I've been shooting. You can see how much of this is coming off on the Q-tip. But I think if you put this in an enclosed container and just let it sit, it would probably do really, really well. And just to show you another view of this, well, here I'm doing it over here, but you can see this is sort of melting away. See if this works any better. Yeah. Well, I think you get the idea. Now, of course, this stuff will knock you out faster than a shot from the emergency room. So, yeah, but that looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? So now, why am I going through this whole rigmarole, this experiment? Because What I'm going to be doing is putting a gallon of this stuff into my gas tank and letting it sit there and see what happens. Because I think this will do a phenomenal, I saw a YouTube video on this not too long ago, but I think it'll do a phenomenal job on that corrosion that's sitting at the bottom of the tank, which concerns me the most. Alright, so, well, let's see what happens. I'm going to put some of this in there and slosh it around and see how clean we can get this puppy. Alright, let's take a look at how this came out. I would say pretty darn good. Most of the hard corrosion, crystal-y kind of corrosion that was in there, or scaling or whatever, the residue, a lot of that came off, and this stuff does definitely dissolve the... This thing was pretty bad too. It came out pretty nice. And this is what the bolt looks like after going through that. And I worked on this for about a half an hour tops. There's a little bit more cleaning that needs to happen here. Of course, this is where gasoline is going to be sitting, so you want to have this pretty darn clean. But I'm pretty encouraged about this. And we'll take a look at the rest of this later. I got it cleaned up enough to put it away for a few months, and we'll come back to it. Alright, so far so good. Alright, I think we're gonna switch gears a little bit, and because the cylinder head is being difficult, I'm gonna turn my attention to the gas tank. This gas tank's gotta get out, gotta come out, I should say. And just looking at some of the details in here, you can see that that's the evaporation canister. What do they call that? I guess it's a vapor canister. Now, it's got some clamps down here that don't look original Alfa, but when I take them off, and that's on the filler neck, but when I take them off, I'll find out. You got your original Roma blocks on there and a little vacuum. This goes all the way to the front of the car. And now there's a Copiglia clip, which is a little interesting. That's the only one that I've seen on the car so far. And of course, here's your sender. Of course, I'm stumbling here. But here's your sender. And, you know, with the classic 2 wires, I'm going to be taking that apart, of course. But I think what I'm going to do first is take off all these Roma blocks and whatnot and try to get this stuff out of the way in preparation for getting that neck off, the fuel filler neck. And there's a little bit of corrosion on the tank, but this silvery finish, I think, is a special paint, but I'm not 100,000% sure. I don't know. Maybe I'll never find out, but we're going to start working our way out on this thing and see how far we can get. I probably got to take this rear drape out just to give myself some room. There's some screws. Look at this original spare tire. I don't know if it has any, I think it's got some mileage on it. We're going to be taking that out later. I haven't even taken out the tool kit or the jack yet. I should do that. That stuff is great. Yeah, I think I'm going to take this out. Just give myself some more room. And all right, so let's start hacking away at this.